And in light of the sad passing at age 76 last month on Albert Einstein's birthday, coincidentally enough, of quite possibly one of the greatest and most legendary scientific minds to have ever graced this planet, Professor Stephen Hawking, I thought now it would be the perfect time for me to pay a little bit of an admittedly belated tribute to him in this video by giving you guys my review that I've honestly wanted to do for quite a while now of the biographical documentary film Hawking, otherwise known as Hawking, A Brief History of Mind. Obviously not to be confused with the 2004 TV movie of the same name with Benedict Cumberbatch, which, by the way, I've already reviewed on the channel in the past and will very kindly leave a link to in the description below for you to check out, which was distributed by the likes of PBS, Vertigo Films and Channel 4, was initially broadcast on Channel 4 on the 7th of December 2013, was directed by Stephen Finnigan, was co-written and narrated by Stephen Hawking himself in his own words, via the iconic synthesized American accented equalizer computer program that was built into the wheelchair that he used to move around wherever he went after he tragically lost the ability to speak after contracting pneumonia, that I'm going to get into in a little bit, features interviews and little anecdotes with the likes of Stephen's ex-wife, Jane Wilde Hawking, his elder sister, Mary Hawking, his one-time science rival, Sir Roger Penrose, some of his students and personal carers, as well as Kip Thorne, Buzz Aldrin, Jim Carrey, Benedict Cumberbatch, and Sir Richard Branson, and basically chronicles the entire inspirational life story of Stephen Hawking, from his childhood years to his university days at Oxford and Cambridge, to his initial life-changing struggles with motor neuron disease, with which he was initially given a 2-year life expectancy upon diagnosis shortly after his 21st birthday, to the publication of his best-selling book, A Brief History of Time, to his stratospheric rise to international superstardom within the scientific community, as well as within popular culture, as especially evidenced throughout this documentary by his many memorable cameos in the likes of The Big Bang Theory, Futurama, Star Trek, and The Simpsons. So, what are my thoughts on Hawking 2013 after finally checking it out on YouTube for the first time in just over 3 years? Did it do the man himself any real justice now that he's passed away? Well, to coin a phrase by a certain online animation critic, let's find out. First of all, let me just say that I absolutely freaking loved this documentary, and thus it's completely beyond me why the hell it didn't get nominated for Best Documentary Feature at the Oscars around that time. And before you ask, I'm not just saying this because I am a die-hard fan of Stephen Hawking or anything per se, but I am rather brilliantly, fascinated by him, and also am someone who has just an undeniable amount of admiration and respect for what an incredibly inspirational and influential man he truly was to so many people, and especially how he used his condition to inspire so many disabled people around the world, and across this country, like the one sitting here talking to you right now, to never ever give up on their dreams, and to never let any of their individual, physical or mental limitations stop them from achieving whatever they set their minds to, as beyond brilliantly and beautifully evidenced right at the end of this documentary by his indelibly memorable appearance at the opening ceremony of the London 2012 Paralympics, in which he gave just one of the most emotional and awe-inspiring speeches I've ever heard from anyone in my life. By the way, was just such a beautiful way to end the documentary, in my opinion, because the bonfire night celebrations that take place at the Hawking House sometime after that, I just kind of personally see as more like an epilogue than an actual ending to this documentary, if that makes any sense. It absolutely fucking irked me as anything to scroll through the comments section shortly before I sat down to watch this documentary via YouTube and see almost a large majority of people say that this amazing man, looked a bit weird or was overrated or a robot or completely faking his disability, which, by the way, in my opinion, I find to be pretty damn offensive, even towards people who have or have had motor neurone disease themselves at some point in their lives. and is honestly just the exact same sort of, trolling mentality that you would normally expect coming out of the personal Twitter account of a certain president of the United States. And just thinking to myself, did any of those people ever actually meet the man face to face, or even have any real sense of, decent understanding of what this man had to go through for most of his life with this debilitating and ultimately tragic disease known as ALS, which luckily for us didn't impact on his brain, but did eventually result in him beginning to slur his words to the point where he just couldn't really speak properly, slowly losing the use of his legs over time, slowly losing the use of his hands over time, almost slowly losing the use of literally any muscle movement within his face over time, making it gradually hard for him over time to eat and or drink properly, made him, as I said before, develop a near fatal case of pneumonia at one point, which in turn completely robbed him of his ability to speak, and in other words, basically trapped him within his own body. Stephen Finnigan did such a superb and professional enough job directing this documentary. I also really love the visual imagery that the filmmakers used to perfectly illustrate the many amazing and groundbreaking scientific theories, including the origin of the Big Bang, that were clearly forming on a literal daily basis in Stephen Hawking's ever-evolving brain, especially when you take into consideration the fact that it was the only part of him that was actively working within this body that was progressively and physically declining over time. It reminded me very much of the beyond amazing visuals that were used to create the iconic Stargate sequence in 2001, A Space Odyssey, my review of which, by the way, to celebrate its 50th anniversary this month, is, as we speak, currently in the works. The instrumental score by Nick Powell and Alex Lee, while a bit unobtrusive, is just beautifully well done regardless, and suits this documentary's more poignant, heartfelt and inspirational tone superbly. Stephen Hawking's narration of this documentary was just absolutely freaking awesome, especially given the fact that he had to use a computer to try and help him speak in a way that would otherwise have made him sound a bit monotone or robotic to some people. I was still able to completely understand the meaning of every single word he said. Plus, it was very surprising to see his elder sister Mary being one of the many talking heads featured in this documentary. Speaking of the many talking heads featured in this documentary, I thought they pretty much all worked perfectly for the most part. Well, all except for perhaps Sir Richard Branson's interview, which in my honest opinion felt a little bit weird and off and out of place for some reason. Jim Carrey's interview, though, was just the best and by far my personal favourite of the bunch. Even though the interview itself lasted for just over 2 minutes, it was just great to see Jim reminisce on the great friendship he managed to strike with Stephen shortly after they shared a little comedy routine by phone during the former's 2003 appearance on the Late Night Show with Conan O'Brien. And it was especially hilarious to see the picture that they took during one dinner in Stephen's house shortly after that show, of Stephen cheekily using his wheelchair to run over Jim's foot, and Jim just seeming to grimace in agony as if to shout out his characteristic, owie. Other than the fact that part of me really didn't want this documentary to end for obviously sentimental reasons, the one slight little nitpick, or rather petty niggle, that I have with it is that while we do get to see his memorable appearances in Star Trek and The Simpsons, it is indeed a bit of a disappointing shame that we never actually get the chance to see his appearance in Futurama. That would have been just as great to see included in this documentary, in my honest opinion, and thus not including it was just a little bit of a mistake on the filmmaker's part. In conclusion, Hawking 2013 is quite possibly the first documentary film I have seen in quite a while that's ever felt like an immersive, well-paced and incredibly compelling emotional experience for me from beginning to end. Everyone involved in putting this documentary together not only did such a fantastically heartfelt and beautiful job with telling the life story and legend of Professor Stephen Hawking, but they also did him mightily proud, in my opinion, especially now that he's no longer with us. Not once did I feel like it was getting a bit draggy or boring, or it was forcing me to check my digital clock or fall asleep throughout its entire 94-minute long runtime. It taught me a greatly interesting history lesson, and at the same time allowed me to get to know a little bit more about who Professor Stephen Hawking truly was at his core, as a professional scientist and as a human being, than I initially thought I knew. If you're someone who is as fascinated as I am with the inspirational scientific legend that was, and actually still is, Professor Stephen Hawking, I will definitely leave a link to the documentary, which is still on YouTube, by the way, in the description below, so that you could go and check it out while you still can. And of course, what a better way for me to thank from the very bottom of my heart the amazing, remarkable and extraordinary man that was Professor Stephen Hawking, for completely wowing us with all of his revolutionary scientific discoveries and the extreme dedication and passion he showed to answering all of life's questions and to unraveling all the secrets of the universe for over the last 7 decades, for the fantastic and unique brand of humour and the wit and the intelligence that he displayed to us, for how he's inspired countless / multiple generations of aspiring scientists / cosmologists to achieve the seemingly impossible, and especially for how he used his condition to literally challenge all the misconceptions and stigmas associated with disability at the time, and thus inspire so many disabled people across this country especially to never give up on any dreams they may have, and to always be prepared to go the distance and look to the stars regardless of any physical or mental limitations they may have in their personal everyday lives, as well as say goodbye and rest in peace to the man himself, then to give Hawking 2013 my second overall awesome-tacular rating in a row of 10 out of 10. Now, feel free to leave a comment in the section below and let me know your individual thoughts on Hawking 2013, as well as let me know how Professor Stephen Hawking himself managed to inspire you as a person. Plus, feel free to subscribe to my channel as always, as well as go to my channel page and click on the little bell so that you get all of the notifications and updates from my channel via email. And also, if you haven't already, please don't forget to join my Facebook group page, as well as follow me on Twitter and Instagram. And until my next video, which is going to be a review of the 2015 romantic drama film Brooklyn with Saoirse Ronan. Do take care, everyone, and once again, rest in peace to Professor Stephen Hawking.